Welcome everyone to Kellenberg Robotics' final coding video. Today we're going to go right into last night's assignment. Number 1. What are two things used to write programs? What are four features of object-oriented programming help these two things? The two things are classes and objects, and the four things that help these two are abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Number 2. What are three differences between a constructor and a member function? What are the two types of constructors? 1. Constructor doesn't have a return type. Member functions have return types. 2. Constructor is automatically called when we create the object of the class. Member functions need to be called explicitly using the object of class. And number 3. When we do not create any constructor in our class, C++ compiler generates a default constructor and inserts it into our code. The same does not apply to member functions. And the two types of constructors are default and parameterized constructors. Number 3. What are the rules for destructors? Number 1. Names should begin with a tilde sign and must match the class name. 2. There cannot be more than one destructor in a class. 3. Unlike constructors that can have parameters, destructors do not allow any parameter. 4. They do not have any return type, just like constructors. And 5. When you do not specify any destructor in a class, the compiler generates a default destructor and inserts it into your code. 4. What is useful about structures in your code? If you wish to store multiple objects, such as students' information, the members of the class combined will act like separate variables and are more easily accessible. 5. What does enum stand for? Why are enums used? Enum stands for enumeration. They are used only when we expect the variable to have one of the possible sets of values. For example, Sudoku. You have the values 1 to 9, and only those 9 values can be in a box. 6. What is inheritance in OOPs, and what are its advantages? Inheritance allows the child class, also known as derived class or subclass, to inherit the parent class. When the child class inherits the properties and functionality of the parent class, it makes it easier to reuse the code, write less, and be more readable. Number 7. What are the two types of polymorphism, and what are examples of each? Compile-time polymorphism consists of function overloading. Based on how many parameters are passed during the function call, determines which function is to be called. This feature allows there to be more than one function with the same name but different parameter list. Runtime polymorphism, on the other hand, consists of function overriding. When the child class declares a method which is already present in the parent class, the child class overrides the parent class. 8. How would you call the overridden function from the overriding function? And the example here is whatever your parent class's name with the 2 colons and then your function name. The double colons are very important. Number 9. Why is a virtual function declared? Why is a pointer created in the first example of the non-virtual function instead of an object? A virtual function is declared because it lets the compiler know that the call to this function needs to be resolved at runtime. When there is a big project having several child classes, creating the object of the child class separately is not recommended as it increases the complexity and the code becomes error-prone. Number 10. Where is the word virtual placed to create a virtual function? It is placed before the parent's class void declaration, that is, virtual void, followed by function name. 11. What is encapsulation and how is it achieved? Encapsulation is a process of combining data members and functions in a single unit called class. This is to prevent the access to data directly. First, make all the data members private. Then, create public setter and getter functions for each data member in such a way that the set function sets the value of the data member and the get function gets the value of the data member. Number 12. What is abstraction and what are its advantages? Abstraction shows only relevant details to the user and hides irrelevant details. When the code is adjusted, then only the high-level classes where you have declared the members as private will be modified. If the data members were made public, if the code needed to be revised, the necessary adjustments to all the classes that are accessing the members directly would need to be made. It also makes the application secure by making data private and avoiding the user-level error that may corrupt the data. 13. The terms abstract class and interface are used interchangeably. A class with a pure virtual function is known as an abstract class. How then is an interface marked? An interface is marked with a virtual keyword and a =0 after its signature. 14. What is a friend class? Can a global function be a friend function? A friend class is a class that can access the private and protected members of a class. Yes, a global function can be declared as a friend function. So that is your completed reading of this book that shows you the basics to C++ and how it can be used in your years of coding. I also wanted to let you know that this is not the only way you can learn coding. If you Google, let's say you didn't know where to start learning coding, skip all these ads, and let's say I want to learn programming, but I don't know where to start. After a few words of advice, and he gives you examples where you should start, so you already know the computer science fundamentals, doing the assignments, and reading the beginner's book for C++. Now let's move on to what type of code you may want to learn. Well, you already know C++ generally from a basic level. Let's say you're interested in Java programming. He here recommends a book, but also he made a Java video tutorial. This shows you how to do Hello World in a Java version as well as integer outputs. One thing I wanted to show you guys, like I mentioned in the last video, I finished a Python text-based video game. I called it Agent X. Basically, it's around 1,200 lines of Python code using variables, import settings, Boolean code. I was able to make a video game, and you can play through it. It's around 20 minutes long. It just tells a story, and the story was written on my own time. You can use coding for video games, security, auto clickers, random number generators, development, login and registration systems, car rental systems, and just by having a background in coding, it can really help boost you forward amongst the rest of the crowd. Websites that you can use is c++.shell, also known as cpp.sh. It's a perfect online website for you to practice your C++ coding. And for Python, I recommend Replit, so you can make yourself a Replit account. I don't know too much about Java, but you can start by looking at this video and working your way from there. That's all I really wanted to say. I hope you all enjoyed this entire series for coding. I hope you guys learned something new. It was an honor being your coach for the Vex Robotics 2020-2021 competition year. I'll see you guys in the final video. Peace.